Your show's rubbish.
7, 6,
Speed this up. It's not a
5,
NASA program.
4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trout Spinners podcast, the number one XFM RSK podcast. There's no other competitors out there on the market. You are here with your friends Miles Pennell and Gary Forrestal. Celebrity Gary Forrestal is one of our critiques on Reddit. Call us. They said apparently they think we're celebrities. I don't know if that's the right thing to say.
They don't think we're celebrities. They think we think we're celebrities.
Oh, Gary, can I have an autograph?
I think I've sent you a few through the post, mate.
You probably
Keep
have.
asking me. Keep asking me for that. But yeah, no, there's criticism around it, and I think we should say, I think we should say, like, look, there is another podcast out there. I don't think our true fans are going to stray away from us.
There is another RSK podcast, which is strange. I think we were probably trailblazers in this podcast, international, global podcast movement, if you don't mind me saying, Gary.
Followed by one in our wake. No, there is, it's called the Carly Pilt Boys. Yeah, check it out. It's two Australian guys, and you might like it. If you like more professional stuff, you like that. If you like.
Gary, I actually had speech training from the BBC. I know how to talk on.
Yeah, this is why people hate us on Reddit and stuff like that.
Hey, listen, man. I've had appalling hay fever this year. I don't know what it is about this year. I've got a couple of hypotheses for why I've had worse hay fever this year compared to other years. I don't know if you do this, but men of a certain age, you've got an extension on your razor. I have to nose trim my nose. I've got very hairy nose for whatever.
Yeah, I do.
It's so disgusting. And I think the pollen obviously kind of gets trapped there. But now I've got a very clear nose, like almost a Daniela Westbrook nose. I've got a very clean passage. So I think the pollen's entering at a faster rate than it would at other years. And I went out for drinks the other night and with my friend, my other friend of two. We're going to talk about friends later today, actually. No, it wasn't someone else.
I can't wait.
Yeah, well,
Mark said to me off air before we started playing. It's like he said it really earnestly. Like honestly, it's like, I've got some stuff about hay fever. I'm going to start off with today.
This is it.
Really excited about it.
No,
which is sweet.
It's because honestly, my face. I talked to my sister after I've been up all day, and honestly, in Ricky's words, I did look like someone with a punch-drunk stroke victim. Half of my face was just falling off like Andrew Lloyd Webber, and also I just looked like Quasimodo. My eye had blown up to the point where it was concaving my pupil. I could barely see.
I get that.
And I was on the phone, and my sister was going through all these sort of remedies. I found some Vicks or some sort of droplets, and I just ended up putting my head in this bowl of steaming hot water with a towel over my head, trying to clear my sinuses. God,
my mum used to do that. I remember my mum doing that all the time. She used to do that with a bowl, and it was like part of our childhood.
It's like waterboarding.
Steam bowl. It's kind of but you don't. It's probably more benevolent. Yeah, she had less information that the FBI wanted than the terrorists, but she used to do it. But she put drops of Vicks or something in it. So
yeah.
Really
that's what
helps
it was.
you. That image just takes me back to my childhood. You saying that?
Oh, does it really?
Funny how that is.
So if anyone does have any hay fever remedies, I'm totally open to ideas because
I also have the eye problem. And do you remember you came down once and my eye? I could not stop rubbing it, and it was by the end of the day it was just red raw around that bit, and because it was really sunny as well. I suffer with the eyes. That's where I kind of looks like I'm crying. Maybe I'm just emotional.
I think you are emotional.
A bit emotional.
Also, just that sneezing, but the non-stop sneezing. That's such an odd sensation. Yeah. Other things that I've been into this week, Gary, include ice cream. I'm really into the ice cream scene at the moment. What's your favourite ice cream?
Well, there is only one.
Vanilla cone.
There is an answer to this. It's not a subjective thing. Mint choc chip.
So what you'd go for?
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best.
I'd say
it's not even objective. It's your favourite as well. It's everyone's favourite.
I do enjoy it, yeah. I would say pistachios probably my Stecker fave. But then, what's happened to the Zap? Did you ever have a Zap when you grew up?
No. What was those ones though that were green and they went round in a spiral downwards, and in between there was ice cream and there was yellow Fab? No, that was Fab was different actually. What were they called?
It was green.
Do you ever have Calypso?
Yeah. Do you know they don't do them anymore? But they used to do lemon Calypsos when I was growing up. And my God, I'm a big fan of like citrus fruit anyway. But they were fucking out of this world. They were great. So many good things.
Sorry, just as you were speaking, I was just imagining someone typing on Reddit, like typing more stuff out.
They talked about Calypsos. Well, hey, that's all right.
Calypsos. Yeah, so it's we should say it has been a little while since we started. So this is the D-Trout Spinners, or we like to say the D-Trout Spinners, but really it's D-Trout Spinners. It doesn't make sense. It's a tautology otherwise, but it's D-Trout Spinners, and it always
big words.
And we're reviewing this week episode 48, I believe, of the Ricky Gervais Show. We've only got 3 to go after this. Of the second series, and then we'll go on to the third if anyone wants us to, because at the moment that's in doubt. We're not sure, and then we'll go back to series 1. Oh no, on to 4, then back to series 1. But it kind of feels weird to be so far through the series.
I was checking I was checking our catalogue. We've done like something like 60-something shows of this absolute shiz.
Because shiz.
Yeah.
But on Patreon you can get extra shows. So
damn right you can.
Shows of shite.
How much money would you suggest someone goes on there if they're gonna give us anything?
I'd suggest £1,800 a month, but that's just you can be bit above that, bit below that, and that was just a little wine bottle cap being unscrewed there, you heard, and screwed back on.
I tell you what, no, I wish I could be that rich that I could always have a corked bottle of wine, but I'm not. But I was watching I was talking to you earlier today, and I was watching Sideways, the Paul Giamatti film, which is all about wine tasting. A couple of lads go having a bit of a midlife crisis, and they're going for their stag week where they just go out to a bunch of vineyards and confront their different emotional problems. And yeah, they just sip wine and drink wine. And like you said to me, it was just almost that subliminal message. I was just wanting wine.
Yeah, that's why they cut people. I know I don't agree with this, but they'll cut scenes of people smoking in old shows out because they don't want to. I don't agree that they should be cut out. I think that's too much. But it is suggestive, and if you see someone smoking, like in a film thing, you do.
Definitely. I was watching. You don't watch it, but I highly recommend this to you and to everyone listening. Call My Agent on Netflix. It was started as a bit of a cult sort of French TV series, but it's sort of come into the mainstream. Obviously, it's very, very French. It's very Parisian, and
he's wearing a French top as well.
A bit nautical shirt, but they do. The smoking really makes, and they're cool and sexy in French, and you're just like, I want to be cool, sexy in French, and have a fancy job. And
where's me Rizzlers?
It doesn't quite have the same effect, does it? When British people go, "Oh, I do, it's throwing this disgusting thing." It's horrible. It's not a sexy.
I don't even roll. We're talking about this before. Like I can't even roll. I don't even know how. It's such a. I couldn't even. You
should get one of those machines that like do it for you. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, I have got one of those machines. It's called like a pack of cigarettes. The machine's been done.
Very cost effective. Anyway, today, and I do like to correct you, Gary, this week we discuss episode 49.
48. No.
49. Trust me,
have I listened to the right one then?
You better have. Anyway, this was originally broadcast on the 19th of July 2003. Karl's Kitchen's redoing, Steve's Big Feet, Songs of Phrase, Karl and Babies, Steve's Big TV, Wheelchair Tennis and the Paralympics. Karl gets a kiss from Steve on the head. Karl recaps holidays in Hastings and specialty shops, Monkey News, the chimp that won the 40-metre race in the 1908 London Olympics and that. And you can listen to this show, and I'll put a link to the description, and then you can go over that, pop your headphones on, listen to that,
and we'll see you next week. Bye everyone. That's the longest intro you've ever done.
That was quite long, wasn't it? I should have shortened that down, to be fair.
That's okay.
Anyway, Gary, your initial takeaways to this episode.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it comes off the back of such a seminal episode that it's always, listening to this one, if you go in sequence, is always a bit of a come down, not in a necessarily a way that it's a bad show, but it's a come down from the craziness of last week and just how ridiculous that show got. So it's kind of back to normal today. I like some of the discussion. The TV being too big is a bit of a boring anecdote until Karl turns that into Wimbledon stuff, which
you can say that
wreck the grass. But that's a good part of it. In general, there's no kind of standout moments for me personally, and I think I just from our initial conversation before the show, I think you might feel differently. There was no kind of real standout, but there's still easily, I've got like loads of quotes, easily get the 6 laughs in and more. It's certainly not up there with my favourites. It's probably kind of a mid-level show for me in terms of quality.
I find that so strange because for me, I had a different reaction to this show. And I'll tell you why. Last week we heard, I think it was in a Patreon show that we did, do check that out. Liam, one of our lovely Patreons, mentioned that he sometimes felt bad that he can't listen to the shows as frequently as he used to, and I totally get that. When you love something too much, you should always have a break and then return to it. However, I was walking around the park listening to this episode earlier today, and I just found myself in those joyous old days of as if I was listening to them for the first time, particularly the Simon Mayo anecdote where it's like giving a rent boy a blowjob and all that. I want to see him in Amsterdam torture garden with 13 blokes jizzing on him, all with beards. And it's just
that was a name for the show that could have been.
It could have easily. But the pace at which he delivers that past anecdote is so fast and speedy, almost like he'd written it, and he obviously hasn't. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and it's like, and then to the point where you get Karl going, yeah, but why did you get kicked off that station?
Oh, you've taken one of my favourite
I'm
quotes.
sorry, look, still to come, by the way. We've got our favourite quotes and XFM in the community. And this is what I'm saying with this show. I just was brought back to why I love this show so very much. And can I just say as well, I have actually met Simon Mayo in the flesh. I was an intern for Something Else Productions.
It
wasn't Darren Brown. And I shadowed the producer of the Kermode and Mayo show. And then afterwards, I quite geekily had my book there ready to sign. I was like, can we get Simon out? Simon's quite a scary bloke. Like, he's got there's something about him. He's such a powerhouse of the BBC, but there is something very intimidating about him. But despite his sort of size and stature. Then you meet Mark Kermode, who's been one of my heroes for ages. And I got annoyed because when we were talking about our ideal dinner guests, I should have fucking invited Mark Kermode. I didn't invite him, so he's not going to come now. Anyway, he's got giant hands. And he was so lovely and warm, and I shook the hands.
Well, he's a big guy. He's
wonderful to meet your hero. So I thought it was quite funny. But anyway, I was proper laughing.
By the way, that is, and I say there's no standout moment. That, if anything, is a real standout moment. But just going through some of the topics that they discuss, I mean, they address Karl's breakdown, or what they call Karl's breakdown, which I was.
But it's funny. But then they say Karl's breakdown, and they're coming out of Tom Petty's breakdown.
Yeah, but they do that deliberately. That's not of course, which I always feel is unfair because that completely absolves both of them of any blame. Like, they're just saying, "Oh, it's Karl's breakdown." I always find that kind of like a bit more, even just a bit more insulting on top than stuff about it being a freeway show. I think that this episode is part of the reason why we hear the very beginning of series 3, which I love. It's kind of like they're talking about whether they're going to come back. This is the first time in series 2 that they've discussed, are they going to come back? What's going to happen after the break? And it's kind of interesting to hear that. It's always interesting when I go back, listen to this one, and then go either from series 3 or to series 3, and you think, it's funny because at that time they're saying, this is a freeway show. No, you've got to come, sort of making him feel like, he's got to come on board, like pressuring him to do it, and he doesn't want to do it. And then it's completely calling him out for doing the new show, but getting Mondays off. And even though this episode is evidence that they were the ones pressuring him,
that happens all the time. When he does come back from series 3, he's like, well, I'm going to come back and I'm going to make my stance And it's almost like that's completely futile because you can't argue with Ricky and Steve. They send that text this week that goes, you seemed a bit quiet after you left. I just want to make sure it was nothing I said.
Yeah,
it's just the most antagonistic. And this is outside of work. Like, you've already had enough of him in the fucking studio. He's got access to your personal phone. We've got from good authority, you know, Karl had to literally hide where he lived because he was worried about Ricky following him home, which is unbelievable. What I do like about that, and building on what you said, he said, we'll give up if you give up. It's just so funny how much of what Karl's words kind of backfire on him. He was happy to say that, but it's like, well, you know you can't give up because, you know, we need you. And the same with the builders, with him making that gaff on her saying, the builders listening to the radio on the fact that it was tuned to XFM.
He's just realised.
And then also with his mates and not wanting to see the baby. There are 3 times this show where Karl trying to defend himself, or like he just makes a gaff,
but he's completely put in those positions and then when he is completely at fault, and I love this, it's a great bit of the show, but where he is objectively like at fault is like the Wimbledon stuff. Like he brings that up completely himself. Like he's not pressured into that, but the other stuff he's pressured into. Just as a little side note, it's always I've always found it weird, like the way that Karl pauses before he said, and there's something about the way he says, "You've just passed the buck," that makes me think he learnt that phrase very recently before that show. Like there's something about how he says it. It's like that someone who just learnt that phrase would say it like that. I don't know if any listeners think that, but do you know what I mean? It's always
about things that you've only thought and things that I've thought. Imagine if Karl had never needed that new kitchen, would he have ever even done these shows?
Yeah, because, you know, he would have. I think deep down he liked doing them, apart from like last week where it got ridiculous. He likes doing them. So he is put under a lot of pressure. He's completely called out unfairly a lot of the time, but he enjoys it. He loves, and he had something saved about Wimbledon, I'm sure, because it was like he was waiting for an excuse to bring it up.
Oh, don't look, you've got to tell people what he says now. And I want you to say it because I know you don't want to say it.
No, it's just little fellas in wheelchairs playing the game, and you know, it's. I've seen it. I know what it means. It's completely a valid sport, but it's
wreck the grass. Wreck the grass as well.
Hit it, net.
Hit it, net.
I mean, they don't as well. They're quite good, but wreck the grass is quite a funny phrase.
Wreck the grass. Stop while you're ahead.
It does.
But they would use AstroTurf, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they use AstroTurf if it's Wimbledon?
No, they use grass. It's
do you not also think as well, like how people's views to this is probably looking a bit too in depth to it as well, how people's like views and perceptions of disability in sports have probably changed, not since that comment, like Pioneer,
they have even since that comment, yeah, because they are a bit hard, and they talk about the Michael Flatley, river dance being at the Paralympics, and even like this isn't disability thing in sport, but the way he ends on mongoloid. It shows like this, right? I'm not criticizing them specifically because I find it entertaining, but I am criticizing them in some ways. But it shows like this that are the reason that Ricky, Karl and Steve won't come on this show. There's maybe many reasons for that, but why they don't want to revisit the shows, and they don't want the shows coming out, because they were all naughty in this show. They were all naughty about things that are now perceived completely differently, and they all take the piss in some way of disability, mainly disability. This show, rather than sometimes it's Chinese fellas, sometimes it's
gay fellas,
gay fellas. But I don't think it's just that. It wouldn't happen today because XFM, the station, doesn't exist today. We talked to Andrew Phillips, we talked to other people at XFM. XFM doesn't exist in the way it existed, like as a kind of radical, independent, kind of edgy station. But it wouldn't happen today also because of even doing it in a jokey way would be seen as unacceptable. And I think that's probably right that it's seen as unacceptable. Having said that, I still I enjoy listening to the shows, but this one is one they kind of, they're all naughty, and I was listening back and thinking, this really is why Steve won't come on and Ricky won't come on. They don't want to revisit the time because
giving a rent boy a blowjob.
Get away with that. No, that's fine. That's fine. I honestly, that's naughty. That's what I call just naughtiness. But it's not offensive, like in terms of taking the piss out of like structurally disadvantaged people.
The thing is, though, you say all that, but like these aren't the first time that these stories have been relayed. Like I remember, I think it's in Ricky Gervais's Politics stand-up, where he does actually recall the same joke about the little fellas in wheelchairs. Yeah. And he says, and it's really funny because when he does a little bit of trivia, he does it when he relays it. He goes, "Does everyone know who Karl Pilkington is?" And everyone goes, "Hey!" And there's a bit of an applause, which I love that because even you've got at that time where Ricky Gervais had probably just done series 1 or probably 2 of The Office as well. And he's just getting into stand-up. And people love Karl Pilkington back then, which just warms me up a little bit. But it just makes me laugh, the fact that he recycles that bit. Or he just relays it. It's not recycling, but... because you could do...
He does, but, attitudes...
You're allowed to do that, of course.
He wouldn't do that today, but it's kind of that. That's why people like Ricky Gervais, who aren't necessarily savoury characters, they're not nice people. There's also very nice people who like Ricky Gervais. I get that. Hopefully we're 2 of them, but... and so are you, listeners. You're not nice people who like Ricky Gervais, but there are people who are a bit unsavoury like him, and it's from like through lines that come from this show, this sort of taking the piss out of disabled in a way that's like, oh well, that's my freedom of speech to do that. I can do whatever I want. But even Ricky wouldn't say some of the things he said today. But I saw an interview with him, just tangential thing on Ricky. It was about 7 months ago, but I'd just seen it this week, and the title was Ricky Gervais. If you say anything mildly right wing on Twitter, you're Hitler, which I think that's like there's a small number of people who kind of really react, strongly to things, probably too strongly, but the majority of people don't. And that's the first time I'd ever heard him talk about a political, like the right and left spectrum, other than completely joking about it like he does sometimes during this show. He was defending the right wing and right. When he says mildly right wing, things you say that are mildly right wing, what he means is quite far right wing, not necessarily far right wing, but quite far to the right. And it's kind of shows like this that show the genesis of that opinion. But I didn't like that interview, so I didn't even watch it. But I saw it. It's the first time I've seen him defending right-wing ideas, but calling them right-wing rather than just saying, "Oh, freedom of speech. A comedy should be about everything." So this show is quite a telling one, I think.
Well, yeah, I think we all know Ricky's views on freedom of speech by now. I mean, it's not like he talks about it at all, is it? No. So. How true is it, do you think, it would be that they were offered other gigs to other better radio stations?
Oh, yeah, I totally believe this. Absolutely, yeah. Their agent will have been approached loads. I totally get by that. I'm certain that's true.
London's Hot 106.2.
Rick, that's brilliant, Ricky. He's actually singing other stations.
Virgin 105.8
on a commercial radio station that needs to make money to survive. Like it has to have its own listenership. He's like actually giving away other stations,
And do you know what I can imagine? I can see Karl's face like as he's doing it, because he does that. Ricky does that sort of snorty laugh where he goes. And it is, and it's that which is a direct reaction to someone's face. You can just see it in your mind's eye. I want to talk about, Gary, there's a couple of big sort of topics that I liked in this show. Builders. So the first mention of builders is the pub across the road. Is that any good? And then Karl bringing
ham sandwich.
And saying like he wants to bring in good quality cookies into work with him because he's worried they're going to be eaten.
Very open about that as well. Like also not just public profile then, and he's also the second thing to consider. He owns his own property, so the likelihood is that he will have known not only apart from the builders that were there then, he knows that in his life in the future he's going to need builders, and builders could become aware of this show. So he's very open about that. Like I was surprised even for Karl how open he is about things that could actually affect him in other ways, like the builders. But
can you imagine now, like because he literally will be so well known. And chances are, I'm not to stereotype, but I bet sort of builders are the sort of Karl Pilkington fan base. He would have at least seen, An Idiot Abroad or, some of Ricky's work. It must be such a nightmare to traverse that. But it just made me think of, I don't own my own house, and very seldom do we need work doing here. And if you do, you're like, they're in and out and you barely see them because it's all handled by the landlord. But it just really made me think of that time. Do you remember, Gary? It was that Christmas when I was coming to visit you. We had some drinks. We went back to your flat to pick up something. Literally left your flat. The door slammed shut.
We recorded the podcast. I think we recorded in my flat, or we recorded something in my flat. So we were there for a while, drinking a bottle of wine, which is always dangerous. And then I've lived in this flat 8 years. I've never ever done this. We just left, and the door shut, and I was like, I just knew straight away. I've left my keys in there. So straight away, it's like,
have you got a bent coat hanger? Because I did.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was someone did, luckily. And let's not stereotype her in a way, but she was a lovely woman.
Like I say, as Gary called up a locksmith, 2 people arrived, and
there's only one.
She was wearing an elf hat, which I was like, I quite enjoyed that because it like brings you a little. Because
it was Christmas.
It's Christmas, and
I was thinking, forget the hat, just to get me in the flat.
No, but Colin, you could do with a Christmas cheer, couldn't you? You could do with a Christmas cheer.
Yeah, but the cheer was when that door opened. I tell you, I've never been so relieved in my life.
But it made me laugh because when she sort of bent over, there was a bit of arse crackery.
A bit.
That was.
I think the sun went in. No, that's terrible. I shouldn't.
No, it was all right. No, it really was. Yeah, there was an eclipse, total eclipse of the bum, and
eclipse of the
bum. I do wonder. It's expensive as well to break into your own.
It was about
flat.
130 quid. That's the thing. They spend their you could ring them at 4 a.m. They always have their phone on, so you're gonna charge a lot of money.
But also that is the time when you are most likely to lose your keys. Like you're not gonna lose them at fucking. You're not going to lose them at your time, sort of 7. It will be like 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you'll get some absolute drunk sod. But have you ever had any building work?
I was with girl. She was a friend.
Gary, can I just clarify? When you meet a woman, right? Not all of them are your girlfriends immediately. No. Just so you know. No. Just so you know. Just want you to be aware of that.
Look, this was my mum, and she was. I think she was a girlfriend. But we had a drink. We knew each other well. Like it wasn't like a date, first date. We got so drunk, right? I've never been so drunk. We went to McDonald's, which is about 600 yards from my flat. Then got a taxi from McDonald's. I couldn't say the street. I could not tell him the street of the street. So I just said, keep on going. And we went, honestly, I swear, we went 2.5 miles down, like completely the other way. He was really pissed off. We couldn't pay him. We walked back. We got finally got in my flat about 2 hours later. It was pissing it down. And I was in the flat and I couldn't find my keys. And then I kept thinking, but we've got in the main door, so I must have my keys. And I lost my keys in between, I know I have them on me, but when you're so drunk and they're just in your pocket, and you're just there in your pocket, but you just cannot find them.
I used to have that when I went clubbing with my mate Phil. We'd go to like Revenge in Brighton, as you know, and that was in the days where I actually made an effort to the way I look, and I'd often wear a blazer, and you've got inside pockets in the blazer. And he'd literally have to pat me down as a bouncer would. I should go in as if I was being pre-bounced before I was bounced. Just to ensure that I had like my wallet, keys, phone, earphones, in case I didn't want to listen to anyone. Oh, that is so stressful. That I still get it now, that sort of anxiety of losing something, because it's horrible.
That's very rarely happened to me. So I lost my keys, but I found them on that occasion. But this was the only time I've locked my keys out of my flat. She came quickly, didn't she? Like we only waited for
really
minutes.
Quickly, yeah. Really reminds me. There's a great Peep Show episode of that called, I think it is called The Nether Zone, where Mark and Jeremy get locked outside one of Jeremy's love interests, but in between leaving the front door and the front door to the flat. And they order a pizza but end up having to get the pizza slice delivered through 2 envelopes. Like, it's so funny. I'll put a link to the description. On that note, we're talking about sort of mates and mates helping you out. One thing that does irritate me about this episode. Ricky and Steve's kind of callous and kind of arrogant views to old friends. And it's just those two words that always strike a chord with me. It's ditto, ditto, when Ricky's describing...
I do get it, though. I do get it.
Look, mate,
obviously, from my point of view, it doesn't come from an arrogant position because I haven't achieved any more than them. But I do know what Steve means when he said, like, he's been to a bus stop and he saw someone from school and he walked to the next bus stop. Think of Steve from Steve's point of view as well. Like, Steve is one of the most recognisable people you'll ever meet. Like, you'd recognise Steve if you didn't know him, obviously, quicker than you would Ricky, and Ricky's more famous. But if you went to school with Steve, you'd recognise him in an instant. So he can't hide. He can't kind of so
could you stand in the distance?
Yeah, but I really hate like meeting people from school. I get that I get, but they are probably a bit. I don't think it's arrogant. I think they're just being funny there. I give them a pass on that.
I just think I find it cruel, and I think they are kind of taking the piss out of their own fame when he says, "Unless you have won 4 golden globes."
But that makes it acceptable. Like
I know,
it's like that thing of like if you don't go over the top enough, it's actually. It could be quite a nasty thing, but whereas sometimes going over the top and doing like being ultra like arrogant, like playing a role of an arrogant person, like far more than you actually were, it actually can make it kind of all right, and actually like you're not being that arrogant because you're being so arrogant, kind of, but you're
and they are. If anything, Ricky is good at is playing and being arrogant. Having the ego, and he probably would have loved that. But I do like it is nicely sort of wrapped up at the end where they go, "What do you think of that, Karl?" And he goes, "It's all right." And again, this is kind of preempting my favourite quote, but he says, "I'm honest with him though. I say, I don't know who you are, can't remember you, not bothered." I totally 100% believe that is the case, whereas I would cowardly cross the road, and I have done that in Ipswich with a number of people who I went to school with, because this thing when you're from a small town as well, like even in London, I found that I bump into this has happened a few times. Like I'm in a bar, I talk to the bar person behind the bar, and they're like, "Miles," I'm like, "Sorry, do I know you?" And then other times we're just in the park and they go, "Miles, this is London. You're not meant to know that I'm here." But then you go back to Ipswich, and it is quite a small town by all means and purposes. You'll often see, your school friends who they're married or have kids or they've changed loads, or you meet them in a bar and they're like, "Oh, do you remember me?" And I'm like, sure, why not?
Yeah, no, I don't get that.
It's proper scary. Like, oh, goodness me. I do wish that you could, and Steve mentions it as well. Like when you go to university and you're kind of keen to reinvent yourself. There is a lot of sense in that. Because everyone
did that.
Oh, totally.
You've talked a lot about that. Openly.
Yeah, but I think everyone does that. Like,
did I tell you how I did it? I know I was called out on it. I went to Megastore. It wasn't Virgin actually, HMV, let's say HMV, and I bought loads of music, right? And it was just before term was started, new term, and like I had Oasis, but I thought, well, I want to expand my collection.
Do you like Oasis, by the way?
Oh, yeah, I do like Oasis apparently, but I don't go on about it. But yeah, I got to the desk and he was like, "Oh, you going to the university, mate?" Hey. Yeah, I was like, yeah. I was so embarrassed. It's like, "Oh, yeah, get the music in now, and they'll like you." Like, so it was true. He knew what I was trying to do. But I get I still have some tracks on my iPod from those CDs today that I'd never listened to ever.
Oh, it's just, this is what I mean. You do it all the time. Like,
what's the story, morning glory?
and they went, let's not be friends with Gary anymore. He's obsessed by Oasis.
People have done that.
Some people I'm not obsessed with. Who do you hate, Gary?
I was going to say something about that segment, but I'll save it and I'll think of someone I actually hate.
Got a few.
Hate, okay, when he's thought about it, hate is a very strong word, but someone in comedy, like, who I've never, ever liked, ever anything, in a panel show.
Harry Hill.
That is the opposite, that's true. He is my hero, he's my legend. I love Harry Hill. But it's Patrick Kilty.
What? But he has not been on telly for about 10 years.
That's quite right, but he was on telly quite a lot.
Who is he married to? He's married to someone famous, isn't he?
I don't know. Cat Stevens.
He does. There is a brilliant a Patrick Kilty joke. I'll never mind the Buzzcocks for Simon Amstell's on there with Anthea Turner, and he goes, "I think Patrick Kilty's a cunt."
Only Amstel.
and then Anthea Turner is all. She's like, "You can't say that. You haven't got one." And then he goes, "Well, I haven't got an umbrella, but."
It's so good.
Another reason why he's so good. Okay, so top one. How many have I got? One, two.
Hang on, let me just think of other people. Right, so
I've got 6.
We're not talking. We're talking within the bounds of like
minus celebrities,
like,
as they say.
People.
Minus
not politicians, not Trump. We're not counting.
Gary, politicians and mass murderers. What's the difference?
It's funny. Mars is getting.
That's from the next episode, by the way. That is stolen.
Today? Oh yeah, Mars has grown up in a lot of ways. Like he's doing stocks and shares now. He's teaching me about it. Like,
well, barely. I don't know that much myself.
No, he doesn't. I also hate. I don't really hate people too much. I've seen a lot of bad stuff about James Corden in the last couple of weeks.
He's on my list. He's on my list.
Go on, you do your list, but go through them quite rapidly. We don't want to.
Yeah. I've only got 6, Gary. So
no, I'm not saying like. Quickly get the show over, but I'm just saying.
Well, that's what I see in your eyes, mate.
It's been going on a lot.
Okay, cool. So, I'll speak for it. Amanda Holden is my top one. Can't stand her. Don't know why she. Don't think she's got the talent. Don't know why she's like seen as a personality. Don't get it. James Corden, Jack Whitehall, Michael McIntyre.
Jack Whitehall, yes. Michael McIntyre, I don't hate. I don't hate him at all, but he's done really well.
It's just irritating. Of course. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's more. Julia Hartley-Brewer.
That's getting into politics.
I know, but she is. It was either between her and what's her name, Morgan. I got mixed feelings when it comes to Piers Morgan.
Can annoyingly be right on some.
Exactly. That's why I didn't put him in there. And to end on, Ricky Gervais.
Well, interesting.
Right. Interesting.
He's subverted the formula just right at the end there. To good effect. No, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I would possibly put him in there. I don't think I hate him.
And I don't feel good about. Can I just say I don't feel good about that.
No, they understand.
He would, as people that I think, right. What are your ingredients for being a person in the public eye? Because I think it's being authentic, and I don't like that word, but I think it stands for something. Being talented and passionate about what you do, but then also being quite modest and maintaining dignity when you're in the public eye and not being too opinionated. And I think if you can get all of that right, then you're kind of on your way to being very.
I disagree with that formula, because I don't think being too opinionated is necessary for being in the public eye. In fact, I think it's important that some people who are in the public eye for a certain thing in the art world, like as in creative comedy, whatever, are opinionated about other things in other areas because they can bring about change. So I think that's fine, but it's just Ricky's opinions. Again, Ricky is, in these days, we're reviewing him now, he's supremely arrogant, the things he says, but he pitches it really well. And he could have done that. He could be that arrogant person, but be funny with it. I think that's what he's lost, the kind of being funny with it. And he takes himself far too seriously as a person. And that's bad for comedy. It's bad for him. Like, personally, I think, like, what people think of him, decent people think of him. He's definitely strolled, as I said before, Ricky is a bit of a gateway drug to the right, and he's a very, very powerful one.
And at the same time, though, Ricky, if you're listening, do come on the show. Love you.
Love to
have a chat with you for an hour or so.
Yeah, it's just maybe 45
I'll tell you what, if you come on, we'll give you a packet of good quality cookies. How about that?
Yeah. And there's some Band Rock Station. Welcome back. Yeah, I just thought I'd say welcome back to you. I haven't said much this show, so I thought I'd say welcome back. We've had a discussion about episode 49 of the Ricky Gervais Show. What did you think of it? Let us know. What are your thoughts on?
How can they get in touch though?
By Ricky Miles dot Twitter. No. Okay, at Spinners Podcast on Twitter, or spinnerspodcast@gmail.com on your email lines, and do get in touch with us. We do like to receive your emails, and we do. It just does count as the hatred we receive from other means. Let us know your thoughts. But now we're going to come on. We've got favourite quotes and ex-fem in the community. So let's whiz through these favourite quotes. Yeah, because I'm looking forward to ex-fem in the community.
Cool. I'll start off. Hit it, net.
This okay. That's good. We've done so many of these on this show
know
already.
it's the problem, isn't it? It's the problem.
This is because of how he says it. I always like, that's easy excuse.
That's an easy excuse.
He doesn't use prepositions. So he just goes, it's easy excuse. He just doesn't say it properly.
I'm honest with them though. I just say I don't know who you are. Can't remember you. Upfront attitude to not being friends with, and I totally believe that as well.
Yeah, no, I did, and I had that as well. It was my favourite question. And I'd be thinking I'd keep quiet.
Got to loosen this tie. Can you imagine though having a heart attack on a flight? Imagine if they're trying to do a podcast on a flight, and Gary goes, "I'll keep quiet."
I'll keep quiet. I don't know my cardiology.
In an Amsterdam torture garden with 13 blokes jizzing on them, all with beards. And to be honest,
I should have got to that.
I also should have gone with, we know birds who do leisure stuff to feed their smack addiction. Like the word leisure, let's be honest, you can't say that anymore.
Well, hang on. You've got birds.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah.
Crack, smack addiction. Like, it's just so many offensive things in that sense.
But I think even then he would have been quite self-aware to know that that's like, and that's why he says it, because he wants to stir it up.
No, it's kind of the way I'd say.
Which is a good Bob Marley song as well.
Stir it up. That would be this is probably my favourite line of the whole show. I mean, you can still do your consultancy stuff.
Sure.
Like, Ricky is so good at, like, Steve's just saying the normal stuff, like to take the piss, like that. But Ricky's really creating a character. Like, I mean, you can still do your consultancy stuff. That takes quite a lot of in-depth knowledge about the workings of surgeons, and that they can do consultancy work even if they've been struggling. Like, so it's
now the guy who's doing the tiling. Oh, that narrows it down even more.
That narrows it down. And on that subject, he had it down on his little dog hit.
Do the kitchen for a week. I think, who hasn't wanted to see what the kitchen, what it turned out like? And can you imagine, right? The person who lives in the flat that Karl once occupied as well. I mean, it's not quite, living in the same flat as Freddie Mercury or something, but it would be quite nice. I'd be
willing to bet that Karl still owns that flat and still lives there part of the time. Yeah, I'd say so.
Maybe.
I don't think he likes moving. Yeah, it's your one, I think.
London's Hot 106.2.
And he does it so, like, he really goes 6.2, like, really does it as the jingle, like, to wind XFM up.
And then it's Virgin 105.8.
He's not happy with just the one that's in the paper.
My grandma now has to feel her time during lockdown. Bless her. She did have some crossover books, because you need it, don't you, when you're about older?
You got to keep your mind active, even at my age.
Because you see the films aren't out there. Done. I've actually got something about her on tellies. Yeah, that's what I was going to say actually about the television story. A bit of trivia here, and I'm sure everyone knows this anyway, but that does actually feature as a sort of anecdote in the extras, where I bought that telly in Darren Lamb's character, and I think it's extras, and he goes away and he's trying to sell it from his telly. Yeah, but that's a good point about cinema as well. That is why you go to cinema, to see the films.
But Ricky kind of, he doesn't even argue with me. He's like, he laughs. He's like, he's got me there, to be fair.
Yeah.
Which is quite rare, that. Straight to video. Cinema. And would never be seen at the cinema.
I was going to add to that is Star Spangles. Is that out yet? Is that out? It's Bazooka by Stars. Okay, my one is, he's eating a banana. All those little those lovely little noises.
Yeah, I love that. It's just beautiful. The next two you've done, I've got, and I just want to repeat, in Amsterdam torture garden with 13 blokes jizzing on him, all with beards. I love saying that. So, but I'll go to my last one. This is but why don't you still work?
Exactly. And my last one is on Monkey News. He was faster and everything, but quite hairy, and then Ricky
quite
just
hairy,
going,
yeah, and it's just like
right.
Oh, we did that nicely because we had the same mouth for once.
Definitely.
Put that on Reddit.
He hates the Reddit people, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm indifferent to them. Anyway,
he's not indifferent. Anyway, let's not get into that debate.
Let's not get into an argument about this because we'll be here for another half an hour at least. Anyway, so this is XFM, the community. This is where.
Oh, and could I just make the point? Sorry, I just wanted to. Please. I didn't make the point. This is the show. Why we call it that? This is the show where he says XFM in the community. That's where I took it's Mars' idea to do the feedbacks of it, and we needed the name for it, and I thought
both agreed. Both agreed in a way.
No,
okay, so this is from Rory Quinn. Hey guys, thought I'd take the time to write you an email since I recently discovered your podcasts and that they have really given me a fresh perspective on the shows. The first clip I ever heard was the Monkey News, where the monkeys from the rough bit offer to trade bananas, with Ricky falling off his chair saying, "This is such shit!" And they have been a constant source of joy since. It's incredible how I can still, after 13 years, put on any show and can still be entertained, even though I know exactly what is going to happen. Truly timeless comedy. Listening to you breaking down of each individual episode makes me realise that I have never really thought of the shows as individual pieces just because of how I had listened to them. They're a terrific background comfort blanket in so many situations, and I always just play them all through from start to finish, coming back from where I left off each time. There are some episodes which stand out due to being a thread running through them. For example, the episode where Karl is ill and they spend the whole episode pressuring him to call in. "He's done, he's not even here!" is one of my favourite moments of the whole series. Yeah. The Maudlin post-mortem Sony's episodes where they didn't win a sausage, or the ep with the burgers and grapes record attempts.
That's the Gerald Preston episode. The middle one, which you don't like that bit, but I love it. Yeah.
Shows with a story, if you will. Those have always stood out to me as the most memorable, but it really does make you listen to the episodes differently when you're assessing their quality in the context of the series.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Rory. That's what we're trying to do here, and that's sort of kind of what we came into it trying to do. And you kind of, it's a reassessment for us as well as everyone else. We're kind of having these thoughts of when we talked about it before that we never kind of thought in this deep way about the shows. But yeah, and it's interesting. I guess
that's why other people wanted to start a podcast about like the XFM shows in a way.
Well, that and it's like a hit job, like the drive-by shooting. But yeah,
you fucking D-Chart spinners, mate. You fucking shit. That's like.
But yeah, no, thank you, Rory, and I agree. All your episodes, it's funny. Yeah, you say that. You describe it in a good way. Those are episodes with a real story to them, and they're the best ones. And we're very open and honest about what we feel about each show. And we say when we don't think it's the best show necessarily, but still, if that's in context, as you say, to the other shows themselves. Whereas if you take it out of context and compare it to most radio shows, even the weaker shows of the XFM Ricky Gervais show that we've already reviewed in Series 2 would stand up well against almost any other radio show. But when you compare them to each other, some stand up better than others, and that's what we try and get across. But thanks for your comments as well.
This is from Samuel Richardson. I love this email. Good day, long-time listener, first-time caller. Was listening to your latest podcast where you were going on about Australia and the guy who likes to pause the episodes and join in on the conversation, and thought I would write in. So this was Chris D from last episode, and he was from Perth, and he got in touch basically asking whether there were anyone in Perth who listened to the shows. And Sam continues, I'm originally from Newcastle, England, but living in Melbourne currently. The spiders aren't that bad, Gary, here. At least in the big cities, at least. Does that make you want to go even more?
Not really.
Not really, baby.
I've seen a kangaroo.
One of my favourite Australian movies is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Love it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All right. If the guy who likes to talk to the podcast is ever in Melbourne, tell him to give me a shout and we'll go for a pint of Foster's. A pint of Foster's, mate.
That's Australian. I wonder if he meant that last joke.
He did, of course. That's all really. Could also give you a shout out to my mate John H, who I put onto the podcast a while back, and you guys have read out one of his emails in the past. So hi John H, hello Samuel Richardson, and I hope that you and Chris D can enjoy a lovely pint of Foster's.
Wouldn't that be lovely if we put two people across the other end of the world, on the bottom of the world, Antipodean, put them together? But yeah, thanks you, Samuel, and hello to John 8. Hello.
This is from Stacey. Was thinking today, listening to the old XFM once again, I really wonder what it would have been like if the XFM shows had been done when COVID had happened. Like, imagine if COVID had happened during the era when Karl, Ricky and Steve were broadcasting at the same time. If they had been able to do it with COVID restrictions, I'd be interested to hear what their commentary on the pandemic was like. How about you? What do you reckon it would have been like? I really wonder what Karl would have had to say about it all with his very laid-back attitude towards everything. So, can I just start this by saying, Stacey, and I did email this as well. I personally think it would be a mixed blessing for Karl because A, he would have got to have stayed home in his comfort zone with his nice plum cover on his futon and broadcast the shows via Zoom. But I would have guessed that would have come with a whole host of technical mishaps and problems. But there was that show once where they said, can we do the show from Karl's flat? And he says, no, you have to fit in an ISDN line. Then I'd have to paint over the cracks to make sure I don't get my deposit back. Which is such a fracture. It's such a...
that bit. Oh, he's gone over he's done about 200 quid's worth of work to get 30 quid.
These are the legit concerns of people who are renting. You go, oh, for fuss. And I've got here as well, even as I speak to you, I'm turning my chair against the wall and there are loads of scrapes and scraps against my fucking wall. And I know...
They won't charge you for that.
No, I know they won't charge me, but you do think about it. So anyway, that's what I was thinking about Karl. But on the flip side, so yeah, he wouldn't have had the stress of them in there in person. But so it would have been juxtaposed with, technical problems. So that would have been pretty annoying. But I actually think Karl probably coped pretty well with lockdown. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But it's an interesting kind of thought experiment. I do like thinking of these things. I often think, what would the show have been like if it had been happened during X or during Trump era, or different kind of different events that have happened. And COVID is an interesting one. There's two different. There's a difference if COVID had happened during that period, or if the show had happened during the period that COVID actually happened in. Because if it happened back then, there wouldn't have been the technology. I know there was technology to kind of ISDN lines and things you could broadcast remotely, but it just would not have happened. The recording, everything, the technology wasn't adequate enough to kind of put out a radio show like that every single week. It would have been different either way. And I think they probably would have, had they been able to continue the show, let's say. Otherwise, you'd just say, well, they didn't do the show, and that's how it would have played out. But had they continued the show somehow, I think they would have had, probably interesting takes on it. I think it would have got a bit samey because they kind of tend to play on the same topics sometimes a bit too much, and it would have been, there's only so much COVID material you can do. But I think it's good, basically, that it didn't happen in the COVID era, because it's not the sort of show that is very reactive in a good way to situations like that.
I'm also so fucking bored with COVID. I mean, I was bored with it when it first started, but I'm so super bored with it now. And I've been finding myself watching and listening to things that kind of take my mind off it. Although I would absolutely 100% recommend everyone watch Time on BBC iPlayer, which is about Stephen Graham and Sean Bean, who were locked up in prison, and it's all about being locked up. Very confined, but
I've seen things about that.
Yeah, you would have just seen. Yeah, you would have just seen stuff about it, mate.
I've seen bits. I've seen bits around.
Yeah, I can imagine. Around. Is that right? Yeah. No, I can imagine that.
No, but I like prison drama stuff.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't, mate? I've been locked up, and I also think we don't need to look too far to think what Ricky makes of COVID, because he did all of those videos that people, I think he won an award for it. Those little to camera pieces. But good on him. Good on him all the same.
He did do it right.
Definitely. So this is from Steve Weller, long-time contributor and patron of the show. Hello, Steve. Loved the interviews with Nigel and Matt. It's really nice to get an insight into the world of RSK and hear more of the stories from XFM days. I like saying the word RSK. Sounds like risky, doesn't it?
Like what? Like injecting.
Well, it's like what the shows were generally, wasn't it? So no, but thank you, Stephen. I'm glad you got something from the Matt interview, because according to the figures internally, that show's been
not a lot of people did. In fact, it's just you we've done it for, I think, statistically.
No, I think so. And this is from Tom Nevitt, another patron of the show. I hope you guys are keeping well. I trust you enjoyed the previous Rockbusters. I noticed they have not featured on any shows, so rather like Karl's mum, I plan on keep sending you Rockbusters with no other context, in the hope of becoming famous of having featured on one of the top 25 UK-based XFM-specific podcasts on
That's
Spotify.
Very good. I like that. I like that.
Thank you. Oh, you got. So let's see if you meet his approval with the Rockbusters themselves. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So the first one is, that champagne belongs to the stag. BF. Do you need a clue?
Bonnie Dear. BF.
Yes.
F for Freddie.
Yes.
Brian Ferry.
No, it's Bucks Fizz.
Oh, Bucks Fizz. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
Bucks Fizz. Oh, very. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right. Good one.
It's shite, so I like it. No, it's not shite actually. It's quite a good one.
Okay, so this is a good one. It's your turn next. E. Band from the 70s, 80s.
Erasure.
Close. Brexit. Think Brexit. What have we separated from?
Europe.
Yeah.
Oh, Europe. Yeah, Europe.
Yeah, okay, all right. Mr. Hanks is sitting at the bus stop. TW. This is an easy one. Come on.
Tom Waits.
Well done. All right, come on.
If you say Mr. Hanks, you got Tom Waits.
Okay. So, what is your opinion on them out of 100%?
Out of 100, I'd say percentage-wise, around looking at 78 points.
That's as high as what he got on his dissertation or his most recent uni work. You're going to correct me now, aren't you?
They're a bit low. No, but they were genuinely. I enjoyed them. Yeah, they were good.
So just a couple of quick ones from Reddit. We've been slagging off the people at Reddit, but they read it and they didn't like it. So he said, this is from Too Far Gone 2. Couldn't get into the podcast. It was pretty awful. I never really seemed about the XFM shows. Just a couple of random unfunny guys thinking they're celebrities and rarely talking properly about the XFM shows. Another one, they said this podcast is bloody awful. Gary, quick riposte. What do you say to that?
I could only agree. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to say that.
So this is from.
I could only disagree.
And this is from our final XFM community. Thank you to everyone who got in touch. This is from Mush Love Ash. Hey Miles. Listen to how he phrased this message. Hey Miles, I love your podcast and listen to it every
I know, it's God. I specifically made sure you were going to read this one out.
Really appreciate the work that goes into it and hope you guys understand how much it means to us fans. So thank you so much, Mush Love Ash.
I say thank you. That's a guarded thank you from me.
No, it gets better. It's okay. Was just listening to the latest episode and heard you and Gary discussing the old cold segment from the podcast. So I just went and re-listened and wanted to point out that Karl says that the ashtrays hold cold, but was misheard by Jerv and Smirch, who then elevate the level of piss taken. I know it doesn't really matter, but it kinda irks me whenever I hear old cold, and figured I'd share my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with you for any reason, like because of what you said about addressing Musk. I genuinely not, but I'm not sure. Like, I think it's old cold. Like, but yeah, you might be right. I'm not saying you're not. But
it does make sense, doesn't it? Because you would hold something cold, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I think it's old cold. I think that's how he's trying to describe it. Like, it's a really interesting way. Because the reason I think it is old cold, apart from it sounding like old cold, but it could easily sound like old cold. The difference is so minute that it could be either. I accept that, but. Old cold is exactly the sort of way Karl would describe coldness in something that's kind of old. It stays there. It's like it's been in there for a while. Like no one else would try and describe that phenomenon in that way. So it's kind of a Karl thing. So I don't know. Is it not? Is it not?
I don't know. I think it's a debate. Look, I think it was a debate that will go on for years and years and years.
And we will be doing shows about it. Get the main. Like doing a show a week, we're gonna do
definitely. No, why bother? There's another podcast. Look, Gary. There's another podcast in town anyway.
Yeah, I know. No, I said it. I said the Kylie Pit Boys. We can say that. We
right, don't worry about
them.
It's all right to have a bit of competition, Gary. It's fine.
This is my typical Mars. Like when he's stressed about something, he plays the role as the opposite. Yeah, thank you. I believe we're going to be putting a couple of tracks probably in our that music thing that we do. I don't know.
We're going to be doing that now. So thanks to everyone who got in touch with us on Extra from the community and for your continued support generally. Obviously, when there's other competitors around there, we truly do appreciate it. This is the Trout Spinners Library. Each week, Gary and I select a song from our personal, like just something that means something to us, and we pop it into our little Spotify library, which is then available in the description that you see in your show feed. This week, I'm selecting, because they do come into, what is the song called?
Breakdown, Tom Petty.
Yeah, so they come into Breakdown by Tom Petty, and I've actually seen Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers live, and they are fantastic. And unfortunately, he's passed away now, hasn't he, Tom Petty? However, I'm going to choose a song from the Travelling Wilburys, who are kind of like, they're a super group, kind of like the Avengers of...
Yeah, they were a super group.
Yeah, they were like, but they're like the Avengers of kind of rock pop, I suppose, country rock, I suppose, and it's Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Jeff Lynne from ELO, Roy Orbison, and Tom Petty. And I'm going to choose a song, and it does remind me of my mum as well, because my mum loves the Travelling Wilburys, and it's called End of the Line, because that's how I see me and you, Gary, in our career.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's just fast approaching. We're not quite there yet. My song, I've been listening to this quite a lot this week, and I just this group actually, I don't give them enough credit as to the you know.
Everyone likes the fast food rockers, mate. Everyone likes them.
Probably know the sort of era of music that I like, but basically this is I'm going to put in Spice Girls. Goodbye.
Goodbye, my friend.
No, you're still such a man.
Why are you putting that in?
Because I've been listening to it. Don't know.
Is it because you said goodbye to your dad as well today after getting really drunk with him?
No, that was a highlight of my life. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. If he's listening, it wasn't joking.
Oh, we love you, Paul.
Hi, Paul. And I don't smoke. That's my song because I've been listening to it. So
I love it.
And that's I love. You can do about it.
We're both Spice Girls fans, and also, can I just say, Gary, my sister's 30th birthday is in August, and it's a fancy dress party where you have to dress up as someone from the 90s. So if you want to come to Suffolk with me and have some big fun and dance to some big tunes in a big marquee, let me know.
No, I don't want any of that. I want the opposite of that. I want my life. I want to involve the opposite of the big marquee every single day of my life.
What if I say it's a small village hall? Does that help it at all?
Oh my god! Seriously.
Yeah, no, seriously,
village hall. You know, it's I can't get enough of
honestly, it's like I'd be surprised if the local bishop doesn't turn up dressed as
a bishop. But thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. And do join us on Patreon. You can find the link in the description or something.
Done.
We will see you next week with a show.
We will do. Take care, guys.
50.